Good day. Today we are going to go over a little bit more with the Moivier's theorem, kind of continuing on where we were at yesterday. Yesterday we took a look at what if we have like what are called natural numbers, right? 1, 2, 3, 4. If that's in the exponent of a trig form. Today we're going to look at that. What happens if there's a fraction up there and how do we update that? Most of the stuff is still the same. There's just one extra step at the very end that we would need to do on this part. So we're going to take a look here. So the background behind this, why we would need to use this, is that anytime we do a root, right, of a number, we get multiple answers. So for example here, if we have x squared equals 16, you guys know, and most time we remember this 4, it could equal 4, but it could also equal negative 4, right? It can also equal negative 4. So there are two possibilities here when we have something squared equals 16, right? In fact, that's true for anything that's squared, right? X squared equals 20. Well, you could take the square root of 20 or negative square root of 20. You always get two answers. And in fact, that's called the fundamental theorem of algebra. Whatever the exponent is, that's how many answers you should have, which sort of makes sense when we have something that is squared, right? It does. But there's one little problem with that. What if we have something that's cubed, right? If we have x cubed equals 8, most of you guys, and correctly, would say, oh, the answer is 2, right? 2 cubed is equal to 8, which is true. However, this should have 3 possible answers. So the question is, what are the other 2 possibilities, right? What are those going to be? And that's where we use de Moivier's theorem to find what those other answers are. And that's what we do. One of them here is 2, but we find what the other 2 answers are with de Moivier's theorem. So here are the basic steps. Here's what we're going to do. And we're going to do step 1. We're going to take this number and write it in trig form, okay, in trig form. And then we're going to use de Moivier's theorem, kind of like we did yesterday. And then there's this last step here that we're going to move around the circle. Okay? It sounds maybe a little complicated, but it's not too bad. So the first step is to write this number in trig form. Now that's a little bit from last week. If you need to go back and review that, go pop back to last week and writing numbers in trig form. We can do that here. Here I'm going to make a quick graph just on a piece of paper to see how that's going to work. If we graph out the number 8, that would be there on the positive x-axis. So I know that the absolute value of that is 8, right? I mean, it's 8 away, and it's just straight over. I don't have to do any Pythagorean theorem. And also the angle of that number is 0. It hasn't moved around the circle at all. So this number, in this case, very simply, it has a radius of 8 and then an angle of 0. So the number 8 is the same as 8 cis 0, right? That kind of makes sense. And so this is just using some of that stuff from last week as well. If you guys have a different complex number in there, you might have to go through and change that into trig form and whatnot there. So back onto here to look at what we would do. First, we would write this in trig form. So that's going to be my first step. Let me pop, whoops, that went away. Let's pop this up here. So that'd be 8 cis 0, right? That's our first one, to write that in trig form. And then the next part is to use de Moivier's theorem. Okay, that's step 2. So to solve this function, it's x cubed equals 8. That means to solve that, I would have to use sort of the inverse exponent. In other words, I would have to raise this to the 1/3 power. Now I'm going to do something a little bit funky in here. It's going to look a little weird, but that's so that it, formats this right up here. So I'm not going to worry too much about that. So we're just going to make that into the 1/3 power. So here we've written this in trig form. And then we use de Moivier's theorem to move around, or sorry, not to move around the circle. That's step 3. Sorry, to go here. But then we have to extend this a little bit. So in here, this is going to be 8 to the 1/3 power. All right, let's make sure that this looks a little bit nicer. Yeah. So the 1/3 power, and then we have cis, 0 times 1/3. Okay, so we'd move that in there as well, right? Which in this case, it's not going to do anything exciting. 0 times 1/3 is still going to be 0, right? Actually, let's do our last step. 1/3 of 8, or the cubed root of 8, is 2, right? We could type that in a calculator as well if you want to check that. And then sys 0. Okay. So there is one possibility. Let's get rid of all this extra stuff in here. So I know there was a few steps, but this was just what you did yesterday. Same exact thing. We brought the power down and we multiplied that exponent times the angle. That's all that we did. So now we need to do a step 3, which is to move around the circle. This gets us what I call your initial angle, your starting angle. And now we've got to move around the circle. And how we do that is whatever our exponent was, here it was 1/3, we need to take a circle, or 360 degrees, and break it into this, however many parts we have in the exponent. So in this case here, we would say, well, that's going to be 360 degrees, and we are going to divide by 3, right? And that's how much we're going to move around. So what that means, what I mean by we're going to move around the circle, we're going to move around the circle each answer by 120 degrees. So here would be all the answers. Okay, here are all the solutions to this. Our first solution, and I'm going to put these each one at a time, so if you want to jump ahead, you certainly can. But here's one of them, 2 sys 0. That's it, right? That initial answer we get, that's our initial answer, that's still going to be correct. Okay, so that's one of them. The next one that is possible, we are going to move by 120 degrees. So we're going to add that to the angle. That's the second possibility. And then the third one is to do that yet again, move by another 120 degrees. And then if we wanted to, you could keep going. I mean, you could find a fourth answer, but really this now will be moving by 360 degrees, which is the same as 0. So you just sort of start repeating again, so you don't have to go anymore. So those are the possible answers, right? We can have this one here. We can have 0 plus 120. We can also have 0 plus 120 plus 120 again. So there are the organize these a little bit. So there are the 3 possible answers, and I'll organize that a little bit more when you guys come in to look at that. But these would be equal, right? So you have answer number 1, answer number 2, answer number 3. And that's all there is to it. There's this one extra step where we have to add that angle going around. And so to do just another couple examples, just to show you how this is working, okay? If I'm going to give the 4 solutions to this one, I've already put it in trig form, so we don't have to worry about changing that stuff. So if I'm going to give these 4 solutions, here I would go 32 to the 1/4 power. Okay, I'm just going to format it like that. And then we'd have our, 144 times the 1/4 power. And that's what we would be doing, right? We're taking everything to the 1/4 because we have to undo solving this, right? Because we're solving, we have to undo this part. If it was regularly already just to the 4th power, we just drop that in and we call it good. But here it is going to this part. So our initial answer, okay, I'm going to have to work these things out. Well, 32 to the 1/4 power, I don't know what that is off the top of my head. 32 to the 1/4 power is about 2.37. Okay, not everything's going to work out perfectly. So here we have 2.3, actually 8, if I round it correctly, 2.38. And then we do here 144 divided by 4. All right, that's 36. Okay, so there is our initial answer. That's just our first one. Okay, and then what we need to do next is we need to rotate. Okay, rotate by, and in this case, we should rotate by, well, again, 360 divided by, again, our exponent was 4, so we should divide that by 4. And you guys know 360 divided by 4 is 90. So here we're going to rotate this initial answer by 90 degrees. Okay, so here are our solutions. Let's go here. Okay, giving all 4 solutions to this stuff. Let's get rid of this title thing. So all 4 solutions. Solution number 1 is right here. Here's solution number 1. Okay, don't have to change anything. The next solution, okay, is going to be 2.38 cis 36 plus 90. Okay, that's going to be there, right? Which is 2.38 times, well, in this case, 36 plus 90 is going to be 126, right? So there's one of our next results, 126, right? Then for the third answer, we'll rotate by 90 again, right? 3's this plus this plus this, right? So we got to rotate by 90 more degrees. In other words, 216, right? We go there. And then we should rotate again by another 90 degrees, and that will bring us up to 306 on there as well. And then if we did it again, we'd pop up to 396 degrees, which is the same as 36, right? If we reduce that by 360. So there are our 4 possible answers. Okay, 1, 2, 3, 4. There they are right there. Now in your homework, you don't have to show this. I'm just putting that there for emphasis in case you guys are kind of wondering. Those are our 4 possible answers. Okay. All right, we're gonna do one more. I'll put one more example up here just to show you guys how this works. If it's making sense to you, want to jump ahead, go ahead there. Here, I'm not gonna put down quite as much work, but again, we'd take this same thing. Here I would say, all right, I need to use the 1/6 power. So I would take 12 to the 1/6 power. And the reason I'm putting this example here is the answer here is not 2. Okay, this is not 2. I do have to use my calculator to get that. And that's part of the emphasis on here. 174 times 1/6. Okay, we're gonna do, we're gonna do that, right? So here I would need to do 12 to the 1/6 power is 1.51, not 2, right? This does not mean 12 divided by 6. So the 1/6 power. So this part becoming 1.51. Yeah. And then in here, I need to do 174 divided by 6, which is about, 29 degrees. Exactly 29, not about. So there's 29. So that's my initial result. Okay. That's my initial result. And then what we need to do, and I'm going to go ahead and steal this one from up here, actually. Okay. Now we need to say, what do we need to rotate by? What we need to rotate by is 360 divided by, in this case, 6, because that is our exponent that we divided off. So you take 360 divided by 6, which is, about 60 degrees in there. So we're going to have 6 answers. Each one is going to be a rotation of 60 degrees by this initial one. Okay, it's going to be this initial one rotated by 60 degrees. So in here, let's put all of the answers down. Okay, all of the answers to this one. I suppose I should have deleted that. Here's the first one. Okay, we don't have to change anything. It's exactly what it is. And then all we do is we just start moving around the circle. So in this, I'd say here's my, first answer, 1.51, cis 29, but then I've got to add 60 to that. So the next one up should be at 89, right? And then we should add 60 more to that. So then I suppose 149. And then we add 60 more to that, 209. Add 60 more to that, 269. Add 60 more to that, right? 329. And then if you added 60 more, you'd end up at a same spot as 29 degrees. So here I'm going to fit this one in here so they're all in order. They don't have to necessarily be in order, but it does make it a lot easier to stay organized. And there are the 6 answers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 possible answers to that. It's not difficult to get all 6 of them, although it's just a little bit tedious. But whatever your exponent is, that's how many answers you're going to have. And so you guys have your assignment there. It's attached a little bit separately in case you want to, format stuff in there as well. You certainly can. But if you guys have any questions on this stuff, go ahead and let me know. Again, here each time you should have however many answers there are. The exponent is. But nothing else. I wish you guys luck, and I will see you tomorrow.